Because what I want to create here does not happen when my back is to you. It doesn't happen when you're looking at the side of me. It happens right here, right now, when I look in your eyes and you look in mine, and we have this connection that happens, and you feel that I get her, and because of that, I know she gets me. And that's the connection that I want us to create today. I was so honored when Lavanya asked me to do the launch, and yet I thought, oh, what the heck am I going to talk about? And I kept thinking about it the entire time since she asked me, which has been, what, a month ago? Something like that? What is it? Do I write it down? Do I bring a PowerPoint? What is it I do? I didn't know what I was going to say until this afternoon. I still don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I have a direction. And it came to me today while I was at UVU, thus the green scarf. I was at UVU, I was at a ribbon cutting for their new technology building. And Karen and Scott Smith, who are Ryan Smith's parents, who own the Jazz, who used to own, okay, you with me on that? Okay. So he was speaking because he gave the lion's share amount for this new building. And it has his name on it. And when he was speaking, he was talking about himself as a young boy. And about how that he didn't have many friends. Now, how many people want to be his friend? Right? He talked about how he didn't think he had a lot of smarts upstairs, even though his head was bigger than most people's. But it made him kind of an oddball. He couldn't play sports like a lot of people. As he was speaking, it almost brought me to tears. It reminded me of a fable I used to read as a young child. And you all know this fable. The fable of the ugly duckling. For as long as I can remember, that fable was my fable. I don't remember a time when I felt pretty or anything other than the word ugly. And that's how I spent the first 55 years of my life. That's a long time. In fact, that's longer than most of you, may I say all of you, have been alive, okay? All right, I knew you were the exception, but not by a long ways. You still don't get to be the oldest person in the room. So if that's the case, I'm 72 now. So only since 55 have I stepped into owning that I'm a pretty woman. That's kind of a novel thing. I didn't know that. I was always made fun of. People didn't want to play with me. I was bullied, thrown rocks at. Anything that made me feel not included, I felt like was part of my life. My mom didn't help with that. My sister really didn't help with that. So I left that nuclear family with a lot of problems and a lot of low self-worth. And I was in the victim mode of blaming everyone. Now, my children will tell you that they don't quite believe that I believe that because that was the most important lesson I taught them. It's one thing to verbalize a lesson and to teach a lesson. It's another thing to actually feel it and change it inside of you and to own it to the point that you make a shift. At age 50, I had my 50th birthday party. I weighed 284 pounds. I was 44% body fat. When we got back the pictures from the birthday party, I went over to pick them up at Kmart. Does that date you? Okay, you don't even remember those days. First of all, Kmart, and then we used to take film in to get it developed. And when you got it back out, half of them were gray and greeny, and some of them survived, and then you put them in a scrapbook. I'm sitting there in the parking lot, and I'm going through these photos, and I come upon a photo of me. Through my entire life, I had yo-yoed up and down, up and down. This was an up moment. I'm like, how did I get there? I didn't ever think I would be here. It was so easy for me to say, well, my mom, you remember my mom? Being bullied, this, that. Always being told that you were like your Aunt Neva, who weighed what? Also 250 pounds, okay? So that all that stuff, I was married to a person who was bipolar, who had a rage disorder, had a paranoia disorder. I was a victim of domestic violence, and he was gay. I had every reason in the world and every excuse in my tool belt of being a victim to say, oh, poor thing, no wonder she's this way. It's just the way her lot in life has been. And that's how I lived my life. I told everybody that I was accountable for my own actions, but I didn't take accountability for my own actions. That day in that parking lot, as I sat there and wept, the only way out of here is by myself. No one's coming. No one's coming to rescue me. Certainly not my husband, not a friend, not my job, because it was my company. It wasn't coming to rescue me. I was already the boss. No, when you realize that no one's coming, so are you either happy where you are or you want to make a shift? I love to play on words. Own your own shift. Was a great play on words. Everyone I showed it to, they're like, let me look at that again. What? Did you ever have that? So as I really stepped into that phase of being accountable for my own actions, my life began to shift. And the piece that I realized that needed to shift for me was actually genuine, authentic accountability. And to realize that the reason this was happening in my life was out of fear. Because the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And what was it that I was so desperately afraid of? My husband? Yep. Not having enough money? Yep. I was afraid of all of those things, but that wasn't the base fear. What is the base fear? And as I began to think on this and realize that was my golden ticket, if I could get to the bottom of what that fear was, I could walk away from it. And I realized the base fear was that I was afraid I wasn't enough, which is really the base fear of all fears. If you were enough, would you ever have to worry about having enough money? If you were enough, would you have to worry about being a good mom? If you were enough, would you have to worry that maybe you'd be fired? They want you there because you're more than enough. Every single fear that you can think of in your life is based upon this fear that we're not enough. I knew I wasn't enough. So how do you walk through fear? As I began to craft my own life, I decided I had to track it. And so every time I felt fear or something that fear, an action that it drove, I would write it down. I had a piece of paper, spiral notebook, those days we didn't put things in a phone or a computer, we just had a spiral notebook. And I kept it with me in my car. Every time I felt fear, I would write down what was the fear and what was I going to do with that fear. For example, as I began to ask myself, well, it's probably not the best idea to always stop every day at 7-Eleven and get 2 candy bars and the third one to have in your purse at home. That's probably not the best thing if you want to walk away from being this 44% body fat. That's probably not a good idea. Well, why was I just couldn't even hardly drive by the place, let alone not pull in and buy 12 candy bars? What was the fear? What was I afraid of? And I started thinking about, you know what it is? I'm afraid I'm going to be at home and he's going to get angry and he's going to beat the shit out of me. And my only comfort that I could find was in eating that candy bar. I began to think about all the times at work when we'd be at an event and I'd start to lose my stuff, and my staff would start screaming, "Get her a Diet Coke!" It wasn't that I needed the Diet Coke, it was the action of sucking on the straw that was like doing deep breathing. And everyone, the whole staff could just exhale with me. Those were all crutches that I was using instead of dealing with the fears, dealing with the stuckness. And you just repeat it over and over and over until the next thing you know, you're over 50 and you're stuck here. So I began to track it. And I began to ask myself, what's one thing? Just one thing. Don't overwhelm yourself, Mary. You have enough at work. You're trying to have a career. You're the only breadwinner in your family. My husband, because of all of his deals at that, he's not my husband now, just so you know. I have John, angel from heaven. So I'm trying to be the breadwinner, run a company, grow that, be a mom. How could I possibly find time for weight loss? How could I possibly find time to exercise? My time, I get 4 hours of sleep a day. What the heck? You want me to only get 3? So what was that? I was giving myself a what? An excuse. I put on my mirror a Post-it note, and it said, what would you do today if you were no longer afraid? And I asked myself that question, looking at myself in the mirror every single morning. What would you do today, Mary? Just if you weren't afraid, what would you do? I would think through my day. What did I have on my calendar? What was my docket look like? Like I remember the first time it came up, you have a Chamber of Commerce networking meeting. Do you know how hard it is for a fat person to go in to a networking meeting? You just think already no one wants to talk to a fat person. And everyone else will have someone with them, but I will be alone by myself. And I began to make up all sorts of scenarios about going to a networking meeting. The first time I was going to one of these networking meetings and I saw my Post-it note, I said, you know what, Mary, if you weren't afraid today, what you would do is you'd park your car in the first parking spot you found rather than drive around till they're all gone. And then you have to go home, right? You would park in the first spot and you would go in. And if you weren't afraid, what would you do? You'd walk up to someone, wouldn't you? And you'd introduce yourself. That's such a novel idea. Rather than making the excuse of, well, I didn't stay very long because nobody wanted to talk to me. How many times do we put ourselves in those situations where we put our happiness and our responsibility on the fact that somebody else, they didn't want to talk to me. I was all by myself, so I left. Well, I walked up and I said, hi, I don't come very often. What do you see you have a name tag? Where'd you get that? Over there, you signed in on that registration table right over there. So, okay, thanks. And then I went over there and I signed in, I got my name tag, and no one still walked up to me, but that's okay because I kept thinking, what would I do if I weren't afraid? If I weren't afraid, I would walk up to the first cabaret highboy table and stand there for a second and think of something to say. So I walked up and I said, hi, I don't come to these very often. so is there a program? Do we eat, or what do we do first? He goes, oh yeah, this is networking, and you get a little bite to eat over there, and then there'll be a little program, and it'll all go great. I said, okay, thank you, that's so kind of you. And then I went over, I got my drink, I got my plate. I went right back to that same person. I picked somebody that didn't look too threatening. I set my plate down on their table, and I said, how can I join you? She said, sure. Huh, go figure, it was that easy. All these years. It just took courage. That first step, that first stepping in. I will tell you this, there is a long passageway from living a life of fear to living a life of love. Each time I take another step, I feel happier. But when you're at this step and you're wanting to make a shift, and you know the crafting of this life is just laying on your shoulders, nobody else's. It's like you're in Indiana Jones, and he takes that step out. You know what I'm talking about in that scene where he can't see the bridge until he steps out, and then it's there. That's how it is for me. That's how it is for you, and it's still like that for me today. Coming here tonight, I didn't know exactly what I was going to talk about, but I was willing to what? Take a step out. And I knew that being here with you, with your energy, with all of our combined power of what we want to create, I was going to find a bridge under my feet. And I came. And I stepped out, and here you were to catch me. So what is that first step? When you feel like your life is there and you can just almost see it. You can almost feel the beauty inside of you. It's like, no, there's something else. I just can't, How do you take your first step? I'm going to give you one of the biggest keys you'll ever have. The key to the first step is vulnerability. Being willing to stand naked. Okay, no.
Both of you.
Talk about owning your shift, right? Because I hope to shout that as a woman that was 284 pounds and 44% body fat, and now I'm 19% body fat, and I lost well over half of my body weight, even though I looked pretty good standing here, when I take off my clothes, it's not often, sometimes I'm pretty tight, People sometimes say to me, why do you always wear those leggings? Because they hold my legs tight. And because I can, bang. But the willingness, the ability to stand naked is not a physical thing we're talking about here, even though it might be for you. It's an emotional piece. It's a spiritual piece. It's a social piece. To be able to stand here and say, I've had to train myself to not look at my likes. I don't want to check how many people have liked one of my posts. I don't want that to be about the value of what I've posted. Sometimes in your position, you might think, I'm a big wig at a company. I have to be careful what I say. Right? But what if you were just 100% authentic? And someone didn't like it? Wouldn't that be okay? Because you'd be one step closer to that person who lives right there. This was after I had gone through my metamorphosis. Not change, but my birth. One thing Lavanya will tell you, and that I will tell you, is that this is not about creating a new you. We're not inviting you to come find your new you. I just want you to discover the original you, the you that's always been inside. And something from Oprah Winfrey really changed this for me. I'd gone through the metamorphosis. I'm there in my bathroom. I'm getting dressed for the day. Lipstick, the eyeliner, just the hair, lots of earrings. And I was listening to an Oprah Winfrey podcast, and she said, I've had to go back and learn to love the little girl inside of me that I was. I was like, what? No way. I have spent the last 15, because this just happened to me 5 years ago, after a long time of being in the new, revealed, and better Mary. I said, I've spent 15 years getting as far away from that ugly duckling as I could. This is the swan now, okay? Not Poulet's kind of swan. You ever watch Poulet walk? She walks like a swan. She walks like a swan. You ever see her sit down? That's how she sits. So I always say Poulet is a swan, I'm a Lego. You know. But that's okay. I love my Lego. My Lego is like a box, but damn, I'm strong. I'm the strongest woman I know. And I am steady. At 72, I can still wear heels. Earlier today, I had stilettos on. I couldn't do it tonight, though. It's too much. I have a torn hamstring. But I'm happy with who I am now. So anyway, I hear this thing from Oprah Winfrey about, loving who she was as a child. She was sexually abused. She was very poor. Lots of horrible things. And I'm just like, shut up. There's no way. I spent all this energy getting away from that girl. I am not going to go back there. And if I love her, I may go back. That was my fear. Or if I gave her any sort of validity. But she kept talking, and I was just like, finally, I pushed the button, I turned it off, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, you love you. You love you. And by that point in time, the tears were streaming down my face. I went over and sat in my wing-back chair next by my big window, and I just sat there and cried. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. She was ugly. And as I put my arms around myself and held myself close, I began to feel some of those stretch marks. It's okay. Those stretch marks and that extra piece of fat that you love right here, that tells a story. My story. And when I think about that little girl, what I came to understand that day, she was the strongest woman I've ever known. She survived. She stood up. I remember those boys who used to beat me up, wait after school, throw rocks at me, kick me, pound me on the back. And I remember that one day when she fought back for the first time. She was strong. And she survived all of those things that she went through. She survived all of these years in an abusive marriage. She survived getting herself kicked out of a moving car 6 months pregnant. She survived. That little girl that I thought I hated and couldn't wait to get away from was now the little girl. I stood up from my wing-back chair. I squatted down like this. And I said, come here. Come here. Let me hold you. And we sat there. Finally, we went to the floor and just held each other. She said, thank you for coming back for me. I said, thank you for waiting for me. That's the shift that each and every one of you have in front of you. I want you just to think for just a minute who you've left behind. I want you to think about her and going back for her. I want you to think about that beautiful, revealed woman who's going to be living over here. And how the three of you, this little girl, this woman of today, and the blossomed woman of tomorrow come together this year. This year. How old are you? 48. 61. How old?
42. 47. 32. 38.
Who's it too late for here? Who is it the perfect timing for here? And I can tell you that at this age, I'm not done yet. I just know inside of me. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm going to know, but I will tell you this. The way that my growth happens at this point is to understand and discover more of my darkness. The more I understand that little girl, the more I understand the journey, rather than hiding it, now allows me to see my light. In my book, the greatest line I ever wrote was this one. And it's going to guide you the rest of these 12 months, so remember it. The healing starts the moment the hiding stops. And when you feel stuck, it's because you're hiding. You may not know what you're hiding. Use your brain. Use your heart. Get them in alignment. What piece am I hiding from others, from my husband, from my children, from my mom, from myself? What piece do I not want to look at? And when you find that piece, whatever little piece it is, and you stop that hiding, that little piece begins to heal. And you step into it. If someone had ever told me that I was going to stand up and talk to them about the things I've talked and shared with you about today, I would have said, are you kidding? I need to look perfect. At the UVU thing today, I heard someone speak, and those words actually came out of their mouth. Being a polite soul, I didn't say anything. But I wanted to. Because they put this on the inside of every single elevator in the building. Strive for perfection. Right? Seriously. So when those doors first opened up, I took one look at that. I just went, can I even get into that space? I said, well, don't be ridiculous. Of course you can get in that space. But when I stepped into that space in that side of that elevator, I made a statement to that wall. I'm as imperfect as they come, but I am striving for something. And I'll share this with you, and I will tell you that I feel from the depths of my heart that it is my purpose in this life, but the good news is it's also your purpose. Our purpose is not to be perfect, nor to even strive for it. Our purpose is to be our very best self. Nothing more, but also nothing less. In the morning when I get up, I'm always laying on this side. I push myself up, swing my feet over. I look down at my feet, and I say, where are we going to go today? I think through my day, and then I say to my feet, just bring your best self. That's all that's asked. Let's go. And I get up and go. That's what I want for you. I want you to think about, what is my best self? How does my best self show up? Not my perfect self, but your best self. That concept will guide you every step through these next 12 months. I hope you come back. I hope you are here with Lavanya as she guides you through discovering that beautiful, beautiful child inside. Thank you.